Welcome back to Nobody's Safe. Nobody's safe, nobody's safe. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. I am back with the frenemy, Mr. Bryce Pinson. And if you love college football, you are definitely in the right place. So before you forget, make sure to smash that subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring that bell so that you do not miss one moment of the Nobody's Safe podcast. Bryce Pinson, what's up today, bro?
Oh, not too much, man. Not too much. A little fiery pre-podcast. We should be fired up and ready to go today. I'll tell you that.
Little fiery. Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. I'm gonna get into that in just a few minutes, but obviously knowing a little bit about it, I mean, we'll go ahead and since you brought it up, there was the Cale Gundy resignation that was basically get the hell out of here, coach. That is coming up later on after this podcast. I'll bring that up myself. I got plenty to say about it being an Oklahoma fan. I don't think that we have to get into it a whole bunch, but
yeah, it's going to hurt
what
Oklahoma.
I do want to talk about
is
coaching.
Oklahoma.
I think it is going to hurt Oklahomans in a couple of ways, but we'll get into it.
Cool.
What we're going to kind of talking about, it's something that we've been talking about the last few days, and I keep getting these statements coming from different people about Deion Sanders. And I had a guy the other day on the ACC tier video where he brought up, let me just find what he said. He brought up that he said, Coach Deion Sanders is the best coach in college football. And I thought about it a little bit. I mean, at first you want to dismiss that immediately. But then here's what I said back to him. I said, I would say he's definitely among the best recruiters in view of the fact that he's taken players from Alabama already, and smart enough to know what he doesn't know. And he's an up-and-comer. But I'd probably pump the brakes on best coach in college football, which I would. That being said, I feel like he's in the SEC before long and getting a chance to find out. I don't hate this take. I believe that it's a bit premature. What do you say to that? I mean, Bryce, I feel like, we've talked about it. He's already on the radar of these big-time coaches like Saban. I mean, Saban tossed him under the bus with Jimbo Fisher.
Must be relevant.
Recruiting and, that his entire class came from paying guys. He said they paid a guy $1 million. Forget the fact that Saban was doing the same thing about Bryce Young last year in a chat that he had in Texas, talking about how Bryce Young's never played and he got $1 million. But he loved throwing Jimbo under the bus, but he made sure to throw Deion Sanders under the bus also. What does that mean to you, Bryce? I mean, obviously, what do you feel about that take?
Listen, I'm never, ever, ever going to say anything negative about Prime. Obviously, I want him to be the best coach in the NFL. He's one of my favorite humans on the planet. He's one of the reasons that I love football today, watching this dude with his bandana and dancing before the
shutdown corner.
Bro. He would have that bandana and be dancing back there before the punt return. He'd play a little receiver for the Cowboys, and he would he was the best shutdown corner for the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Niners. And I mean, it was cool because they would walk to the line and they would say, "Hey, are you throwing to," or not walk to the line, but they would interview the quarterback before he ever threw a pass. They'd be like, "Hey, are you throwing the ball to the right side today? Because Deion's over there." And the quarterback would have to answer either yes or no. And that just shows you how good he was. And,
I remember Troy Aikman before he went to the Cowboys that he had said, "I don't throw it his way." Why?
Yeah, why would you?
I mean, why would I?
You're giving the other team a possible touchdown.
They're moving guys around. They're moving guys around. Now, I know that Jerry Rice wasn't afraid of them, and they were throwing that way. I mean, they were the one team that did it. But Jerry Rice is also the GOAT, so it's a little bit different. And, and those guys, I mean, they were going to run it a certain way. But here's the thing, and here's what I'll say about this. As great as Jerry Rice was, they didn't beat the Cowboys those 2 years that they went to the Super Bowl and won. When Deion came, they won.
Yeah,
went to the Super Bowl. When Deion left, they didn't.
Deion won. Won no matter where he was. Anyways, You asked me what I thought about this coaching thing. So with that being said, I think this guy is one of the greatest football players to ever put on the helmet. Now, as far as the headset, that's a little different. Now, I think it's premature too, and I don't know if you can quite quantify it. I've been talking about that. I don't know if you can quite put it all together and say, okay, well, he does this well, and he does it better than this guy, this guy, and this guy. And his resume is not long enough for me to be able to say, well, just look at his resume compared to Saban, look at his resume compared to Debo. So,
and coaching in the SWAC is a lot different than coaching in the SEC or in the Big 12 or anywhere. I mean, it's Division I at all. You know, if you go, if he went to a place like, you know, we're from New Mexico. What if he went to UNM? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would he coach well there? I want to say that he would, but would they be national contenders? No. Because it's still New Mexico. I mean, but in this, and it's easy to, again, do I feel like they go and win the Mountain West at that point? Probably so. You know, probably so. But that being said, I think until it's hard. Here's the thing about it. You were talking about, is he a great play caller? Is he this and that? My guess is he's not. I don't think he calls plays. Yeah. First off.
And he might. Like I said, he had his own team in high school. He might have
called plays on defense. Maybe he does. Yeah. But I'm feeling like he's probably maybe he's in charge of the last call of the play. But I feel like that he's got an offensive coordinator. He's smart enough to know what he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And so he's going to make the right call of say, hey, you know what? Let me get a great offensive coordinator in here. Let me get a great defensive coordinator in here. Guys that have been coaching longer than me. I can recruit and I know how to keep. I think that what it takes to be a great head coach doesn't mean that you have to be the best play caller. I don't think it does.
Well,
I think that it means that you have to manage your team as a whole well.
Yes.
We talked about Lincoln Riley. He's the best offensive play caller in the country. Is he the best head coach? No. I think that it's clear that his defenses never really got better. They didn't recruit it good enough there either. Now, is there some other reasons that is partly to blame for that? Sure. But I can tell you this. We're going to find out pretty quick at SC what do their defenses do.
Yeah.
Right? So you can be a great play caller. I think Jimbo's a great play caller. I think that's obvious. I think that but what did they needed to do to get great? They needed to do what they did in their recruiting class and get big defensive linemen.
And I think
that's how you're going to win.
And Jason,
SEC.
I think this too. I think added into that, like, you know, NFL, high school, and college, being a great coach is a different animal in every single category.
Every one of them.
You know, in high school, you got to be a great teacher because a lot of these guys are barely learning the game. In college, I think the number one thing you need to be is a great recruiter. Like recruiting over everything. You got to have the players that can compete. And like you said, or like I've heard, God makes less big defensive line than he does any other position. So you got to get your hands on those big guys. Yeah. And then, like you said,
just talking about Oklahoma, they've gotten guys from Florida, big boys already on the defensive line that they know that going into the SEC, you got to do it. They're not there yet, but they got to get those guys.
Yeah.
That has been what he said. Point of contention. They're going to get them.
So with that being said, let me just go over some records real quick. Why this is a thing. Why does this matter? Okay, so if we look 2020 to present, so that means Deion Sanders has coached 2 years at Jackson State.
Yep.
And he has the highest win percentage in the history of the program. And I only think that improves. I don't think he takes a step back this year with these guys that supposedly they paid. But if you go back,
and listen, Jackson State's the winningest HBCU program in history.
That mostly comes in the 80s. That mostly comes in the 1980s. However, if you look, before Deion took over, they were sub 500, right at 400 with the previous coach. The coach before him was sub 400, sub 350. The coach before him was sub 400. Finally, they had a coach with a winning record, but he really had like one great season where he was named Coach of the Year in 2007. Other than that, he was, hanging around 500. Before that, sub 300. And then finally, we get to the glory years, which are 1, 2, 3, 4 guys. Yep, 70s. All the way from 1971 to 2002, they had great coaches.
It's where Walter Payton went to school, by the way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's
So the
football.
real story is if he continues this, Jason, where does he end up? Because that's the real story.
Hey, listen, here's the deal, and I've heard this now. See, I have, we've been doing the Otis Taylor campaign. He went to Prairie View A&M, another HBCU school, and of course, the athletic director there prior to the guy that they have in there now, who Ashley Robinson at Jackson State was the athletic director at Prairie View. At that time, they were winning the SWAC, or at least their side of it. He tried to hire Deion Sanders at that point to bring him in to be the head coach. Deion had his high school in Dallas. He wasn't coaching. He told him no, he wasn't ready. So when Ashley moved on to Jackson State, Ashley Robinson moves on to Jackson State. He then revisits. Deion takes the job, so he was ready. I feel like obviously that's a smart. I think right now. Remember a couple of weeks ago they were asking him about playing Alabama. He said we're not ready. What he said, we're not ready. Why? Because along that offensive and defensive line, they aren't going to be ready, and he doesn't want to get his team destroyed like that. So does he think he's? Do I think he's afraid of him? No. And skill-wise, and even defensive skill-wise, in the secondary, they probably are ready. They
don't have none of those God-given defensive linemen.
But you've got to have those monsters. Yeah, and to play in the SEC, if you're Jackson State or Oklahoma, you got to have the monsters. And what you need mostly is a guy that knows that.
Yeah.
Right? You need a guy that knows that. So, again, look, I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that he could be the best. I think it's premature. And let me just say this. Where I'm at on it is this. Here's what I see, and I don't know where I'm getting this and why it just
feels right, though. I heard it. It feels right.
I got to tell you, man, Brian Harsin, I don't even think he's a bad coach. I think it's a bad job for him. Auburn, Brian Harsin, first year he goes 6-7, 3-5. That's not okay at Auburn. Not okay. And particularly now you're ranked number 11 in the ESPN poll, I believe. In any event, Auburn is a ranked school, and it's never okay to not be good because whether Alabama's good or not good or whatever, they expect to win. They fired Gus Malzahn a year before that for going 6-5. He was winning and right up there for a long time, and they got 1-6-5 record and get out. So here's my thing, and this is, I don't know where this is coming from, but I feel like Brian Harsin he's on shaky ground. Okay. I'm not saying that this guy's a bad coach. He killed it at Boise State. All those Boise State coaches kill it. And I think that he's probably, maybe he's just not in the right place. I don't know. Anyway, in any event, if they don't win this year, and particularly if they don't win by next year, you can pretty much expect that he's going to be gone. Now, the question would be, do they have the stones to go make this hire? Because we're talking about a guy that's only coached at HBCU level. It is Deion Sanders.
Oh,
but would they make the hire?
Should.
No black man has ever been a head coach in the state of Alabama, Division I, unless maybe there was one at UAB. If I'm wrong there, sue me, okay? But they never coached at Alabama or Auburn. I know that. UAB, maybe. Not at Auburn or Alabama.
Prime needs to be the first.
Now, so I want to know.
Prime needs to be the first.
I think that. Listen, and as much as one of the folks there in Houston that she went to Prairie View along with, and she is under the impression that Prime's going to stay at Jackson State forever. He don't want to go anywhere because it's all about the kids and like what he can do for them there. Now, do I think that he can do a lot for African Americans at Jackson State? Absolutely. But let me say this: would it not be huge? Would it not be huge to show young black men and women that you can succeed at the highest level of college football in the SEC at a place that used to didn't even allow black players?
Jason, I want to go one more spot real quick. So one more thing when it comes to where he could go, because Auburn's obviously, that feels good. That feels good. However, there's this other team. And I think there's a lot of movement that's not done yet, but there is this other team that seems to make sense to me too.
Ooh, I think I know where you're.
Florida State. I don't know what his relationship is like with Florida State. I knew he went to college there.
But they should be firing.
Yeah, and then they could move him in there. They could move over to the SEC. It could happen. It feels right. They should be in the SEC. They should be. It's southeastern.
I think it's probably
southeastern.
It depends on what all happens.
It feels right. Or leave him in the ACC and let him dominate Clemson.
And even another place, if you're talking ACC teams right now, I think he owns Atlanta. Why not Georgia Tech?
Great. Good call. No, both of them. So there's many places. I mean, he can go. Atlanta. Deion ain't staying at Jackson State forever. I don't care what he says.
Hey, guys, the only thing we're saying is, if you love it, guys, we're not saying that Deion isn't the best. We're not saying he is, because I think it's just an early time to say it. But here's what I would say. You can't call him the best winning the SWAC or even the national championship at that level. You can't do it. What you have to do is go ahead and come up to the next level and prove it. You can't be the best college football coach without national titles. And you can't do that from the SWAC. So do I believe that he's one of the great coaches in college football? Absolutely. I think that he's proven that. And if you already have a guy at Alabama worried about you, then I think it was a fair, like I said, I don't hate the take. I just think it's early. But I love the take too. And guys, thanks again. We appreciate I appreciated that. I didn't necessarily agree with him, but I told him that I didn't hate the take. But I appreciate the fact that in our comments, we're getting a lot of love with our videos. We're getting a lot of hate too, but that's fine. Keep watching. You can bring it. Look, you're helping us bring on content that you want to talk about. Franklin, you wanted to talk about Deion Sanders. We talked about Deion Sanders. I hope you enjoy it. And listen, I totally agree that he's up there, and I want to see him at the next level. I would be okay if he stayed at Jackson State too. I understand.
I want to see him at the next level because he's prime.
But I would understand totally why he would.
Don't mean I want to.
Right. But I would love to see him. Let's find out if he's the best. Because I got to tell you, anybody that can help kick freaking Saban out of his chair would be fine with me. Okay, kick Saban off the throne. Come on up and do it.
Oklahoma.
All right. Hey,
Deion at Oklahoma.
Nobody's safe. Hey, they were talking about him. They were talking about Deion. Safe. They were.
Turn it off.
They were talking about him.
Cut it.
Hey, nobody's safe. Nobody's safe.